Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday evening program. I'm Bhikkhuni Kaccayana. I think I know most of you online here. Welcome to all. So, this evening we'll be having some guided meditation and some Dhamma sharing. I wanted to start by sharing a little bit about where we are in time. This is the full moon night. And full moon night is special for Buddhist monastics. On the full moon and the new moon twice a month each time, then we gather together for our Uposatha observance. We recite and renew our precepts together. We recommit each time to our practice. And we also remember the special things about this full moon. It's traditional that certain events in the life of the Buddha or the life of the Bodhisattva with the disciples of the Buddha, many stories come down to us associated with the full moons, with the new moons, that we can reflect on. And it's traditional to share about them on such a day. People would go to the temple and spend the day there, practicing with 8 precepts and hearing about the history of the day as sort of a way of, I guess just orienting in time. So some of you may or may not be familiar with this tradition, but anyway, I'm going to share with you about the special meanings of this full moon day. This is the Kartika full moon, the month of Kartika, and it ends the Katina month. Some of you may have attended some Katina ceremonies this past month. Katina happens during the month after the Vasa. So we're going back in time now. The Vasa is the 3-month period, known as the rainy season retreat. In India, this is the monsoon season, and the tradition is that the monastics would stay in just one place for those 3 months, not wandering because of the rain, because of the damage they can do to the plant life, because of the difficulty of traveling. Then they stay in just one place for those 3 months. They make a commitment to stay together there. And the Buddha recommended making such a commitment. And then after those 3 months, if the monastics have completed their Vasa properly, they've stayed there continuously for that time, then the following month, the Katina month, then they may have a Katina ceremony. It's a robe offering event, a robe offering ceremony, when the whole community comes together, the lay community and the monastic community come together for this festival of generosity and giving, and together they offer and make a robe, and often offer other things as well. But the tradition of making the robe together during this month. And it's known also as the robe season. It's the season in which the monastics are able to receive extra cloth, to keep it for an extended period, and to be sewing, making their robes. We're now coming actually towards the end of that month. This is the end of the Katina month, this Kartika Purnami full moon. And in Sri Lanka known as Ilpoya, the Poya Day. And this is a time that we recollect for various sorts of movement in the Sangha. I'm just going to read what our founding abbess Ayatthha Loka shared about this on Facebook today because it's a much better summary than I would have come up with on my own. So she wanted to share 5 special meanings of this full moon day, including both now and in the past and present in Buddhist history and her story. So, speaking of robe offering, this day is remembered that on this Kartika full moon, back at the time of the Buddha, then stream enterer, Upasika Queen Mahapajapati, that is the foster mother of the Buddha and later founding mother of the Bhikkhuni Sangha. But at this time, it's after the Buddha's awakening and before Mahapajapati's going forth and ordination. On a Kartika full moon during that time, she went to the Blessed One, bearing 2 golden cloths that she had woven with her own hands during the rains, the Vasa, and made known her heart's wish to give them to her son, the Buddha. The Blessed One addressed Mahapajapati Gotami, saying, "Give to the Sangha, Gotami. If you give to the Sangha, then both I and the Sangha will be honored." So this is in the sutta, the Dakina Vibhanga Sutta, which explains that the most meritorious thing, it places special emphasis on giving to the dual Sangha of both bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. And the Buddha states in the sutta that this is a higher merit than giving to the bhikkhu Sangha or bhikkhuni Sangha alone. So we recollect this gift, these robes. They say that she had sewn them herself with her own hands, been involved in the gathering the cotton and making the thread and all of it together, making these very special robes that then she wished to give to her son, the Buddha. And he told her no. He told her, give to the Sangha, that this is better than giving to any individual. And so this is something to remember during our Katina month, just how wonderful it is to be able to give to a Sangha, that this is the highest thing to be able to support, so that then because this is what carries the Dhamma forward in the world, is that we have an intact Sangha together. So this is the greatest merit. That's one thing remembered on this day. Another thing remembered on this day is the Buddha's instruction to his disciples, Charata bhikkhave, go forth, O bhikkhus. So the Buddha said to his early awakened disciples, go forth for the welfare and happiness of the many. He had at that time had a very small Sangha. This is early in his teaching career. And I guess they had gotten just big enough and strong enough and awakened enough, well studied and well practiced in teaching enough, that he told them finally, after the rains, I guess, go forth, go out and teach. No two go in one direction. And then this sending out into the world of the awakened bhikkhus, and well, maybe not bhikkhunis yet, but later on bhikkhunis also. Then what a gift that was to the world, and how much strength that brought to the Sangha. And this is still what we try to do as Sangha. We try to go forth, we try to be present in the world in a way that we hope is beneficial, aiming for benefit, for the welfare and the happiness of the many. So this movement outwards on this day is remembered. The third meaning of this day, it's also remembered as the day a century or more later, after the Buddha's passing away, his parinibbana. Then one of his later disciples, the great Arahant Teri Sanghamita, daughter of the Emperor Ashoka, she's famous for this journey from India to Sri Lanka, carrying the Bodhi tree with her and also carrying the Bhikkhuni Sangha with her and establishing the Bhikkhuni Sangha in Sri Lanka. Today is remembered as the day in which she went forth from, setting off from home on that journey. So this is the day of the great going forth led by the awakened daughter of King Ashoka. with the Arahant Bhikkhuni Sangha and sapling of the Buddha's own awakening tree, setting off the day after this full moon from Ashoka's capital, Pataliputta, to the great Tamralipti port to set sail to Sri Lanka. On this Kartika full moon day, the Emperor Ashoka offered a great farewell Bodhi festival in the presence of all the departing bhikkhunis and families. It would be Sankamita's last time to see Pataliputta. So we'll be following her journey all month, I think. We'll be announcing where is Sankamita at any given time. And we know that she arrives in Sri Lanka on Sankamita Day. That's our next upcoming full moon. She's traveling for the next month. And this is the day of her going forth, just like those bhikkhus did for the sake of the many, for the welfare and happiness of the many. We also want to mention that we've just had we're preparing to send forth some bhikkhunis now, today, in this present day. Just a couple days ago, we at Dhammadharini had a very special event at Dharma College in Berkeley called Walking in the Footsteps of the Bhikkhuni Arahants, as a support for our Dhammadharini and Associated International Theravada Bhikkhuni Sangha to join in a pilgrimage coming up in Nepal and India from December 18th to December 25th. So it's called the Footsteps of Mahapajapati, honoring women in Dhamma, and it will follow the pathway that Mahapajapati Gautami followed with her 500 companions later on when she went to request ordination from the Buddha. So we're preparing for that motion also, all of these movements outwards, hopefully carrying forward the same tradition as our honored past Arahant leaders and exemplars did. This is also remembered as the day of the parinibbana of Sariputta Tero, who was the Buddha's right-hand foremost disciple among the bhikkhus. He's known as the foremost in wisdom, and this is remembered as the day of his parinibbana, his passing away. So he and also his three Arahant-Teri sisters, three of his sisters also ordained and became Arahants. Their names were Chala, Upachala, and Sisupachala. So we don't actually know their parinibbana days, but we'd like to honor them as well. And just above my head here, there are the sacred relics of Sariputta Tero with us. I've put a few extra flowers there today, so with honor and reverence for this great teacher, great marshal of the Dhamma, who did so much to, to organize the Sangha, to teach the Sangha, to lead the Sangha, so that they could go forth, they could teach, they could spread the Dhamma that is still coming down to us in the world today. So honoring the great Venerable Sariputta Tero, foremost in great wisdom, on the day when he departed, when the body broke up. And the final thing that I want to mention is that we're coming into November now. And for Dhammadharini, November has traditionally been celebrated as Death Awareness Month. So this is inspired by the Mexican Day of the Dead, Día de Muertos, which is on November 1st and 2nd. That's not a specifically Buddhist tradition, but we are in California here. There's a lot of, the Día de Muertos is celebrated here. And it just seems like a good time of year for contemplating that big transition. We talked about movements out into the world, movements around, the monastics moving now that the Vasa is over, monastics going out for teaching and leading and spreading the Dhamma around the world. So for us, it's a time of transition, and it's a time of transition of seasons. We're going into the colder, darker seasons here in the Northern Hemisphere. It's a good time to contemplate transitions, including the big transition from life to death, And yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. I'm going to give you a little introduction to Dhammadharini's Death Awareness Month after we have some meditation time. But yeah, I'll give you more details later about what do we do, how do we celebrate, how are we going to contemplate this, what seems useful, and I'm interested also in your ideas about that later. So I guess first just starting with the basic contemplation of death. Like this is in a way our great difficulty in life. This is the thing that draws us to spiritual practice, that draws us to the Buddha's teachings. It's one of the aspects of suffering, of dukkha, that is unavoidable. It's one of those things that is just part of existence. It's part of the definition of dukkha. Both birth and death are. Birth is dukkha, aging is dukkha, sickness is dukkha, death is dukkha, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are dukkha. Right? So death is one part of that, but it's one that it's a big one. And going to come to all of us. And we need to think about that. We need to sort of contemplate that because, so much of life we try to avoid thinking about it. We try to, in order to keep living, you have to be focusing on other things, right? You have to be focusing on eating enough and, eating and sleeping and getting yourself cleaned up and going to work and taking care of the family and, and then doing whatever, maybe your creative endeavors, your spiritual endeavors, your whatever it is that you feel meaningful to sort of be putting forth into the world. All of these things are, important and necessary parts of human life, but all of them will come to an end at some point, and we don't know when that point is. We only know that it's coming. So then it becomes important for us to think about how are we going to meet that when it comes. We're preparing for life. We're preparing for more life and more life. Every day we spend our days preparing for life. But how do we prepare for death? How can we be ready for our own deaths, for the deaths of others around us? If others have already died, how can we continue to be with that experience of loss, of grief? How do we do that well? How do we do that in a way that may even someday transcend the suffering at all? We talked about the parinibbana of Venerable Sariputta Thero, and parinibbana is the word that we use for when an arahant has passed away. Conventionally, they've died. The body has ceased to function. It ceased to breathe. The heart has ceased to beat. The body begins to break up. It's death in that way. But we don't use the word death for it. We use a different word, parinibbana, which in a way is sort of, unless you have actually experienced nibbana, it's a mystery in a way. It's something that we're not necessarily able to grasp and understand directly unless you have had some awakening. But even so, just using a different word, I think, points to the fact that there is something other than death. The Buddha's teachings are meant to lead to the end of dukkha, including the end of death as part of dukkha. It's leading towards the deathless. That's one of the epithets, one of the things that they say for Nibbana. They call it the deathless. When the cycle of death and birth comes to a close, and there is release from that. There is coming out of that. There is an end to that suffering, and that's what we call parinibbana. So then we want to look at death in all its various aspects, and that's what Death Awareness Month is for. It's for looking at it both in terms of our human needs for practices around death, when somebody has died, like funeral practices. How do we care well for that? As well as our spiritual practice of preparing ourselves for this in terms of meditation, in terms of Dhamma reflection, in terms of study, and hopefully realization. Eventually, the realization that that sees clearly, that doesn't try to turn away or flinch away from the reality of death, but sees it clearly and is able to see through it and see through to beyond, to the deathless. That's the goal. That's the goal, is to have a good, healthy relationship with death in our lives, I think. The first thing is to come out of fear, to come out of the stress and despair that can come with thinking about death, to be able to turn it in a good and bright way in some way, to be able to use it as a way of turning towards Dhamma, of turning towards the end of suffering. And a lot of the funeral practices that are traditional for Buddhists, I think, are aimed at that. They're aimed at coming out of suffering, at turning towards Dhamma in one way or another. And then to let that carry us through and bring us beyond just living with death, but actually coming beyond entirely. So anyway, that's just for framing. And with that, I'd like to invite you into meditation. This will be a contemplation of death. It is Maranasati, which is a highly recommended meditation by the Buddha. It's even listed as one of the 4 protective meditations. So, starting by settling in your meditation posture. Coming into the here and now with this living body, seated, upright, balanced, dignified in posture. Keeping the spine upright, but not too tight. And then letting the rest of the body relax, held up by the strong, steady spine. The meditation I'm going to lead, I want to say, is inspired by Bhante Analayo. Just if you want to check it out later. But starting with knowing this body. Knowing that this body is covered in skin, including hair, including nails, starting with the head, being aware of the skin covering the head. into the throat, the neck, awareness of the skin in this part of the body. Into the shoulders, the arms, the hands, knowing the skin, feeling the front and back of the torso together, knowing there's skin there. Lower half of the torso. Legs, the feet, and being aware of this whole body as covered in skin. And then starting with the feet, being aware of the flesh, muscles, tendons, ligaments. Awareness of the fleshy parts of the feet. Traveling up the legs. Awareness of the legs in terms of the flesh. The torso, including the organs. Feeling the hands, the arms, the shoulders, the neck, and the head. And just being aware of this whole body being made of flesh. And the bones, starting with the head. Knowing that there are bones, the skull, the jaw, the teeth. The neck, the spine coming down, bones of the shoulders, the arms, the hands, into the torso, the spine and ribs, the hips, the legs, the feet, and knowing this whole body in terms of its bones, everything resting on this skeleton. Knowing that this body is made of earth, feeling the heaviness and solidity of earth in the body. Knowing this body is filled with water. Water in the blood, the saliva, throughout the body. Water filling, flowing. Knowing this body in terms of its heat, its fire. Body is warm. When we eat, digests, makes warmth. The heat spreading through the body. knowing the fire element within the body. Knowing the body is pervaded by wind, the wind element, the air coming in and out through the breath. Body moving. Displacing air. Breath coming and going. Knowing the wind element in the body. And knowing that someday this breath will stop. Elements will break up, wind back to wind, heat spreading out, dissipating, water leaking out, evaporating, breath going back to earth. We can connect with the breath as what is connecting us to life right now in this living body. And with each breath knowing, this could be my last breath. I think there'll be another. There could be something, some sudden accident, some sudden illness. This could be my last breath. Thinking as you breathe in, this could be my last breath. And then breathing out, relax and let go. Breathing in, this could be my last breath. Breathing out, relax and let go. It can be frightening to think this way. And if so, then give more attention to the relaxing and letting go. Knowing this could be the last breath brings it very alive. It brings the attention. If it was the last breath, you'd want to be here with it. Knowing every moment, just how is this breath, this precious breath. Don't know what's going to happen next. What's going to happen next with this breath? We'll sit a little while in silence. Staying with the breath, with the awareness of death and the awareness of life. Just here and now, only time we have. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So friends, coming back to death. You know, there's the story that the Venerable Sariputta, his parinibbana happened before the Buddha's parinibbana. Also, Sariputta's great friend Mahamoggallana, the Buddha's left-hand disciple, foremost in spiritual power, also passed away before the Buddha did. And there's a story in the suttas that the Buddha was sitting looking around at the Sangha after those two great foremost disciples had passed away at their parinibbana. And he said, the Sangha looks empty to him now. So this is the Buddha speaking. He's not grieving. He's not suffering, but he's noticing the difference, that there is a difference in the world, in the Sangha, when somebody is there and when they're not. So acknowledging that this is a reality of death, that something changes, something's different, something is gone that was there before. There's the story we've reflected on recently about Mahapajapati Gautami. Terry, we've in some recent programs we've been reading the story of her parinibbana from the Terry Apadana in the Bhikkhuni Kaccayana. And there's the story that she has decided that it's time for her parinibbana, and she announces this to her disciples and to all her followers and supporters. She's a great, great founding mother of the Bhikkhuni Sangha with many, many disciples and many followers. And she announces to them that it's time for her parinibbana. Those who are already awakened, they take it in stride. They're okay. They understand, and then they have compassion for her. They think, okay, yes, it's time. Please go ahead. But those who are not yet awake are grieving, crying, wishing that she could stay. And what she tells them is, enough with your crying, children. Today, which is your day to laugh. For her, it's a joyful thing to be going out from this body with all its difficulty at her age. They say she was 120 years old, and the body was failing. And she chose that it was time to go, finally, after this long life of great, many great things in that life. But it's normal that there is grief. It's common that there is grief. And Death Awareness Month is meant to sort of let us look at this, let us prepare for it in advance. And I want to talk about just the sort of normal daily life, human, Buddhist, cultural traditions about death. For me, I did not grow up Buddhist, and so everything that I'm about to say about this, sort of know that I'm speaking from limited experience here. And I think, there may be those among us here on this call or on the Zoom who have significantly more experience with Buddhist funeral practices than I do. Even though I'm a monastic, and for many monastics, it's sort of their bread and butter that they'd be going out and doing funerals all the time. Is something that monastics are generally called upon to do. Just because of our particular situation here at Dhammadharini, I haven't been to that many Buddhist funerals, only about maybe 3 or 4. And we've done funeral chanting for many more, but not actually, going in person and being with the body and all of that, only about 3 or 4 for me so far. So in a way, then I don't have the depth of experience about it. But in another way, I've been sort of learning about it as an adult, as somebody coming to it new. So then I can, in a way, that gives me a perspective on it that I have to like figure out, okay, what's going on here, and then learn it myself, and then maybe be able to share that with others who also have not grown up in these traditions and are not familiar and don't understand the meaning of what's happening with these funeral practices and various practices around death. But I think they're useful. They're not things necessarily that come directly from the texts, from the Pali Canon, but they're things that are common and normal in most Buddhist cultures, and with some variations between cultures, of course. It's a diverse Theravada Buddhist world, and diverse, beyond Theravada Buddhism also, a lot of diversity there. But there are some things that are in common that I think are useful human dhammas, useful ways that we can use to face death, to approach it for ourselves and for others, for those around us, our loved ones who are also subject to death, just as we are. So, to start with, I want to say, we chose November as Death Awareness Month because of it being related to the Dia de Muertos, the Mexican tradition, where the people will go to the cemetery and they'll decorate, clean up the grave, decorate with flowers. It's sort of festive. There's like special candies and special decorations and all sorts of things, and people will go and spend the day remembering and honoring their loved ones in the cemetery. This is a Mexican Christian Catholic tradition. And, there's other traditions that we see about this around the world where there's some sort of celebration related to death. Think of like in New Orleans, they have the second line parade where there's the brass band going down the street with the coffin and people dancing and all of this. For Buddhist cultures, they do have things that are sort of similar to the Mexican Day of the Dead. And they're not necessarily at this time of year. So I want to acknowledge that for Buddhist culture, actually, maybe September would be a better time for this. That's the month when, for many of the South and Southeast Asian cultures, there is a festival of the dead, of the departed. The one I'm most personally familiar with is the Cambodian tradition. We have a local Cambodian temple that we've been regularly going to because of the, we've been very lucky to have with us a number of Cambodian Bhikkhunis staying with us regularly over the past few years. And so we've been going with them regularly to the local Cambodian temple and getting to know some of the traditions there. So in September, they have something called Chumban, and it's a 14-day festival for the ghosts, and people, people coming to make merit for their departed relatives. And one of the things I only actually got to go to it for the first time this past September, is that they go out in the very early morning and have little balls of rice and candles and fruit, and they're throwing those to the ghosts, if any have come, so that they, it's the time like the ghosts are coming around and being close. And then there's the throwing rice to the ghosts, so that they may be fed, so that they may be well. This is for them. This Chumban There's also, some of the traditions have something called ulambana. This is also a time of making merit for the dead. And probably others. I don't know all of their names. I don't know all of their timelines, but a number of them are in September. And something that's normally a part of this is making merit for the dead, sharing merits with the dead. So what does this look like? In pretty much any Buddhist event that you go to, not only funerals, there's usually three elements to it. One is dana, giving. One is sila, undertaking virtue, precepts. And one is bhavana. That would mean listening to Dhamma talks or meditating or chanting or in some way engaging with the Dhamma. And so dana, sila, bhavana is one way that people explain the whole of Buddhist practice. And these are normal things to do anytime you go to a temple. They're also normal things to do when going to a funeral, that a funeral ceremony would include these, and that they would be done with the idea that this can be shared, that the goodness of this can be shared with those who have departed. And there's different ways to think about and understand how could it be so that this can be shared with them. And probably, you ask any Buddhist, you'll get a lot of different answers about this, different understandings of how they think it works, or whether they thought about it at all. But there is some canonical textual support for the idea of it, in the sense that if the relatives have ended up in a ghost realm, that they are able to still be around and see what their family members are doing, the ones who are still alive as humans, and they can rejoice. They can't do much else as a ghost, but they're able to see what's good and rejoice and be happy in it. So if you're doing something good and dedicating that to them, then that goodness is a happiness for you. And you can also, wish for them to be happy. They can see that, they can be happy from it. They can see the goodness with you, and because of that connection with you, then that is for them too. It's a source of happiness. They're not able themselves to give anything. They may or may not be able to be doing sila or bhavana on their own, but they can see what others are doing, and they can appreciate it, and they can rejoice. So that part is actually, there is some canonical basis for that. In traditional Buddhist practice, it's also understood that one can be sharing merits or blessings with people who are not in the ghost realm, maybe even with other living people and so forth. There are practices that we're sharing merits, sharing blessings. And these practices, I think, are, they're good for our own hearts, whether you think that the other person is able to receive it or not. These are things that at least we're being inspired to goodness, to what is true and helpful and onward leading in the Dhamma by this. So for a funeral, then you would be coming and there would be giving something, often giving a meal to the monastics, or giving something in support of the Sangha would be normal. It doesn't have to be to the Sangha. Any giving is good. And people will also and these are not only Buddhist, people will often give donations to a cause or a charity when somebody has passed away, something in honor of that person. In US culture, non-Buddhist US culture also does this. For Buddhists, it's usually to the monastics, with the idea of supporting the Sangha, supporting the Dhamma to be in the world, and that this is the greatest merit that they can do and that they can share. So giving something, whether food or other supportive things. It includes undertaking precepts, whether that's 5 precepts or for a death. Sometimes it's more precepts than that. Sometimes people will have a period of renunciation with 8 precepts. Sometimes even there's a tradition of temporary ordination, that people will shave their heads and put on robes, and for a temporary time be living the life as a monastic, with the idea that that is for the benefit of those who have passed away, that it's a great merit for them, and that can also be shared. And then so temporary ordination on occasion of death is another thing, another practice. And then bhavana. So this can mean Dhamma talks. In some places, I think there are traditions of like even all-night Dhamma talks, or rotation of Dhamma talks. You'd invite the monks to the house and give them something to eat and undertake precepts, and then spend the night in listening to Dhamma talks, listening to chanting, or in meditation. So there's traditions of specific chanting that is normal for funerals, at least in some traditions. This is coming from the Abhidhamma, is traditional to chant. For Dhammadharini, we don't usually spend a lot of time teaching, and we don't have a lot of emphasis on Abhidhamma here. But it is highly emphasized in many mainstream Buddhist cultures in South and Southeast Asia. There's a great faith in Abhidhamma as sort of being the highest. That's what the word means. It means high Dhamma, the highest Dhamma. And it's sort of like a systematized, very clear, it's sort of breaking the Dhamma down to its smallest elements and looking at them very directly in terms of mental states, breaking them down to their smallest elements, classifying them as wholesome or unwholesome, seeing how they can arise, how they can pass away, kind of very fine-grained, looking at the human mind through the lens of Abhidhamma. And it's quite complicated. People have to study for a long time to really understand Abhidhamma, need to meditate with it to really understand it. But there's a great faith that this is something true and important, and even just to hear the words of it, to say the words of it with understanding or not, is considered it's considered meritorious. It's considered wholesome and good, and something that can be shared. So, there's a tradition of Abhidhamma chanting, and also sutta chanting. And both of these are sort of, they're reminders of the inevitability of death. The reminders that it's natural, that it's part of this, the Dhamma is universal. The Dhamma is covering everything. The Abhidhamma is universal. It's covering everything. Everything that you need to know about human life, is theoretically, at least in the Abhidhamma somewhere. At least that's the intention of it. And that means death is in there too. And it's just sort of, it's part of the whole. That's what I take from it, is that chanting this at that time, you can sort of understand that the death is a part of the whole, is a part of this whole system. And there's a certain comfort with that, knowing that this is just how it is, in a neutral way, in an uplifting way, and knowing that there is Dhamma that can also lead us out of it, reminding ourselves of that, looking to what's highest. So a tradition of chanting those things. And again, usually with like the photo of the loved one there, with their name, with various kinds of blessings, string blessings, wrapping the string around the photo and then bringing it to all the other people so it's connected. So there's this sort of high intellectual part about the Abhidhamma, but there's also a very human part about being connected with string, to the photo of the one who's passed away. Also, there's like traditions of pouring water. This is an ancient way of like sealing a vow. That if you had made some very important promise in the ancient Indian culture, you would pour water over your fingers. It's sort of as a witness, like the water being a witness, the earth being a witness that you have done this. And there's the story of or sometimes you'll see, actually even just here, our Buddha, Rupa here is the earth witness Buddha. He's got his hand, how do I get my hand on the camera? The hand going down, touching the earth. And it says that at the moment of his awakening, or just before his awakening, there was a moment of doubt, like, who am I? Who am I to do this? And he touched the earth, and the earth witnessed that he had filled whatever was needed. There was nothing more needed in order for his awakening. The earth itself witnessed that. And the way that the earth witnessed that in the stories is that the earth goddess came, and her hair was full of water. She had long, long braid of water, and you'll see her like squeezing out the water, and then the water is pouring onto the earth. And this is how she's witnessing. This is the water pouring onto the earth, witnessing what is true, witnessing a vow, witnessing what has been done. In this case, the great, the greatness of the Buddha's practice leading up to that point, the greatness of that merit, that punya. The earth was witnessing all of that and saying, okay, yes, you can do this. You've done what needs to be done. And in the same way, the water pouring, so water pouring over the hand is a way of witnessing what has been done, which is good, and of dedicating that for those who have passed away. There's water pouring, there's string, there's dana, there's sila, there's bhavana, there's memories. And these occasions are, they can be joyful. I haven't fully seen it myself, but I've heard that in Thailand, people really like to go to a funeral, like even if it's not somebody they know really well or even at all. It's just you sort of want to go crash the funeral because it's a little bit of a party. There's something good and happy about it, to be able to go to a funeral. So anyway, it's just that happiness of going to a funeral, of remembering that person, of being able to do something good for them and for yourself. These are really, I think, good Buddhist values, good human dhammas, good things to do that can sort of turn, not to be sunk in grief. It's not to deny grief. It's not to say that there's nothing there. It's not to pretend that death hasn't happened in any way, but it's to put it in a bigger perspective and to use it as inspiration for turning away from death, in the sense of turning towards the Dhamma, turning towards the deathless, coming out of what will bring us to further death, and coming towards what is good and highest. And so this is a very, I think, useful way of approaching death that I appreciate. Okay, so we're coming. I don't have that much time. I can't tell you about all the Buddhist funeral practices there are, and I don't know about all of them myself. I'm sort of curious. Anyone who knows about more, we'll have a little, open it up for discussion in a minute, and you can share if I've got anything wrong, or if you know something else that's really useful and helpful. I just want to say for Dhammadharini's Death Awareness Month a little bit about what we've done in the past. I'm also interested in hearing from you about what would be, useful or helpful or interesting for you. We haven't got our whole program planned out yet, so any feedback about what would you like your Death Awareness Month to include would be great. So one thing Dhammadharini does during this month is that we do the funeral chanting daily. In the morning and the evening, we do the Abhidhamma and or Sutta funeral chanting daily. We invite people, including all of you, to share the names and photos of departed loved ones And we can, if you send us an electronic copy, we can print it out, we can put it up, and we'll be having them in the hall with us during our chanting times, funeral chanting, and we can dedicate merits for them, share merits and blessings with them. We'll do some more Maranasati, that is mindfulness of death. We did a little bit today, again, as inspired by Bhante Analayo, but there's various ways it can be done. There's traditions, a lot of monasteries will have skeletons in them, or have, I know sometimes monastics are like handing around books of photos of decaying bodies and things, or they really want to go see autopsies. So there's the more strong and more gentle ways of associating with death. But we can think about other, various forms of Maranasati meditation practice. 1 year for Death Awareness Month, we had a death cafe. This is it's an organization or I don't know, I think a brand, or I don't know exactly how to describe it. But anyway, Death Cafe, you can look it up online. What it is, it's a meeting where people get together and they, in an informal, comfortable way with tea and cookies, they talk about death. They get around a table and talk about death in an open way, because it's something we all think about, we all know about, but that it's hard to talk about, it's hard to bring up. And so this is a way of trying to make it easier for people. Things that we've thought about doing that we haven't actually done yet is inviting some of our friends to join us for a workshop on aging and illness and dying, and how to approach those from a Buddhist perspective. Also, workshop on Buddhist practices at the time of dying, like what is good for that person to be, the one who's dying. What can they do, and what can those around them do to support them through that time? And especially like for those who are the meditators, things like if you can give that body, after they've passed away, after the breathing has stopped, still there's understanding that there's some consciousness remaining in the body, and sort of giving that time and knowing what that looks like, knowing how to be with that body as the consciousness leaves, but not all at once, not just as soon as the breathing is done. So information about that is something that we've thought about. I don't know if we're going to be, again, these are things sort of on the menu. I don't know that we're going to be able to get to all of them, but these kinds of things are what Death Awareness Month is for. And I guess the last thing I want to say is also remembering again about the death, or the parinibbana of the awakened ones. We have here, again, the bodily relics of Sariputta Thero. And I think most of you know we recently have welcomed the arrival of the sacred relics of 6, or actually 7 Arahant Teri Bhikkhunis. And we've been, this past weekend, we had the event in Dharma College, welcoming those and allowing people to come to view, to be together with those relics. So, this is also in a way a contemplation of death, of what's left behind after the life. But it's also a contemplation of what would it be for the body to die without, without it being death in the same way that we think of. What would it be to be parinibbana? What is that kind of freedom? And the relics are what is left behind when that happens, these bodily relics. So just opening that for contemplation also, that we do have these bodily relics, and the usefulness, I think, is inspiring us to consider what is beyond, to consider going towards the deathless. Anyway, I've talked too long. I've run out of time, but so if anyone would like to, anyone needs to go at this point, welcome. I won't be offended if you take off but I do want to give time for questions or comments if anyone has any. So, yeah. Welcoming anyone to share or ask whatever they'd like. Richard, yes.
Thank you, Aya. I don't know how many people are aware of it, but relics of the Buddha, actual relics from the stupas, have been found from at least 2 different stupas. And one of these stupas was excavated in 1897 by a person named, I can't think of his first name, it was Claxton Pepe. He was a British farming landowner. And there was a giant mound of dirt on his estate, and he thought it was rather odd. So during a famine time, when the workers needed work because they couldn't farm, he was kind of a amateur archaeologist, so he started an excavation into the mound, and they found inside a giant stupa, and they tunneled into the stupa, and they found a big box made out of stone. And when they opened it up, inside there were a number of jars and things, as well as many gems and gold and other things on the floor and stuff. And one of the jars had an inscription saying that these were the relics of Buddha, the Shakyamuni sage. And so they were able to date this because of the script to the time of Ashoka. It was a Brahmani script that they had started to use, because before that, in the Buddhist time, they didn't really have writing in India. They did everything by memorization, basically. And so they knew that this was a Brahmani script from Ashoka's time. But then in 1993, I believe it was, an archaeologist got the idea that he didn't think that that was the original stupa and that there may be a chamber below. So they reopened the archaeological dig, and they went below, and surely enough, they found an older chamber down below. And in that chamber, they found some more relics in pots using a thing called northern black polish ware, which dates from 700 BC to 200 BC. But the good thing about finding that polish ware is it's carbon datable. Now, they didn't, at the time when they found the original relics, they didn't have carbon dating anyways, and now they probably wouldn't allow you to, because you have to destroy a little bit of it to do the carbon dating. But they were able to do carbon dating off the pottery, and it was dated to between 400 and 500 BC, which coincides with one of the major dates of the Buddha's passing, the one that I think is accurate, 400, I believe it's 483 BC. So anyways, I know we're coming from, most of us, from a Western tradition, and they're trying to say, oh, is there any evidence that Jesus exists? And, and there have been many kind of false relics. They say there's enough fragments of the cross, to build a whole ship or something, things like that. But they actually have found, and there was another archaeological dig that was done at another site, and they actually got relics from there too. Now, these relics were eventually given by the British government to the King of Thailand, because he was the last, at that point in time, royal ruler of a Buddhist country. Myanmar existed, but I think the British were running it at that point in time, and they were also running Sri Lanka. So they gave the relics to him, and then he distributed the relics, some to Myanmar, some to Sri Lanka, and I think to some of the other southeastern Buddhist countries as well. But anyways, it's very, very interesting to know that, whereas there's a question about, in today's modern studies, whether Jesus or someone like that even actually existed, we actually know and have proof that the Buddha really did exist, that there are remnants found from his interment of his relics and things like that. Anyways, I thought that might be interesting. Oh, you can find out about this if you do a Yahoo search. You can just say, Buddhist relics, something like that, and you'll find a bunch of excerpts from. I think the British government did a long thing on the BBC. It's about 45 minutes or something about the Perala or something, Perwala. I can't remember the name, but the place
Yahala.
where they found. Oh, and that also they think is where Kathmandu is. They think that that was where the Shakyans buried their portion, interred in a stupa, their portion of the relics, because it's right near the border of Nepal, and it's about 9 either miles or kilometers. I think it's miles from the Buddha's birthplace, Lumbini. So they think that that's actually the general area of where Kaplavastu was, which is also kind of interesting. Anyways, thank you very much for listening.
Yes, thank you for sharing. Great. Yes, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Sharing? Daniel.
Yeah, thank you. Just kind of putting my vote in, if you will, for I'd love opportunities if in death awareness moments to revere and interact with relics. I think, especially I was talking to other folks at the event on Sunday, who many of whom were Buddhist from birth, their whole life, and they were all saying, "Oh, you never encounter this many relics in one place. This never happens. Like it's always mud. It's so uncommon for this to happen." So it kind of made me feel like, "Oh, wow, that's we should take advantage of that. We should acknowledge that." So I don't know. That's my vote for something to do then.
Yeah, well, great. We have some relics here, and we are, we can think about what is a good way to share that and make that available. I know you're not the first to request that, so we'll be thinking about that. Yeah, I'm glad that was moving and good for people. Janaki, yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's very interesting. Your talk was really very interesting. I'm wondering, have you already prepared the program for the rest of the time until the end of December, until the end of this year?
No, we haven't. That's why I'm asking you for advice.
So, I mean, once you have decided on it, you will be posting to us.
Yeah, we hope to be sharing more about our plans for Death Awareness Month. It will include some of the things that I talked about, but the exact program is not yet worked out.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's.
Is there anything that you'd particularly like to hear about?
Yeah, I mean, discussions are always very interesting. I don't know whether you are inviting other, different monks or nuns from, on Zoom sessions.
Yes, I think we hope to have some guest speakers also.
Yeah, guest speakers, yes, and also it could be quite interactive as well. With the Dhammadharini monastery, the nuns at Dhammadharini monastery, as well as these. So, just wondering whether, if it's a combined activity, that would be very interesting. That's what,
yeah. So have some.
If you think of that, yes, just let us know.
Yeah, I think definitely when we've had in past years when we've had discussion, it really is. It's been really valuable because again, people don't get the chance to sort of talk about their own feelings about death and their own experiences and so forth. And so yeah, I think I've found that very valuable to talk with others and hear them talk and have discussion. So yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, not only just one topic. About all about the history and also many aspects in Buddhism. So it would be very interesting for the listeners.
Sure. Yeah, and I myself I would love to learn more about the different traditions and the different.
Of course. Yes,
I know only a tiny bit really. I think it's good for me as a stick to learn more.
No one knows almost everything, of course. So it would be very, very informative, and it would be very interesting as well to learn about so many different things about Buddhism. And thank you very much for, please just think about that and let us know. Also, if you can suggest someone, about other monastics, can we suggest names as well?
To suggest some of them.
Monastics from
If you
other,
suggest,
in the
I
United
make some-
States as well.
You have suggestions? I make no promises, but I can, yes, you can suggest.
Yeah, I will let you know because because there are some, of course, from the United States itself, so probably they might be of some help. To talk about certain other aspects which are of interest to many people, like would be good. That's what I just thought about it. I'm not asking you or suggesting.
Yeah,
Just
okay, sure.
it's just that's what my thoughts were.
All right, thank you for sharing your thoughts. Yeah, good thought.
Thank you, Aya. Thank you.
Right. So,
Excuse me, I misspoke.
Hmm?
It's not don't do a Yahoo search, do a YouTube search. I thought of it
okay.
after I said it. Anyway, I just wanted to correct myself. So,
All right,
thank
YouTube,
you.
not Yahoo. Okay, any last comments or requests, sharing? No? All right, in that case, then we can end by paying our respects to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha together. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Right.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Your patient
Thank you,
listening.
Aya.
Thank you,
See
Aya.
you next time for more death contemplation.